causes the tipping point. That would be the best of all worlds. If the sun would come along and kick our butts, then at least it's not a global thermonuclear war.
Wow. So it's so funny the way you put the November 8th thing. You said, you're sure it's going to happen, and it's probably not going to happen.
No, I'm sure that there's going to be the impact and the language is going to show up, but the specifics that my monkey mind can generate now won't actually occur that way. George Ure and I would read we always start at a very high level at the archetypes and work our way down towards detail. And I would read these things, and George and I would discuss them, and then we would always come to the conclusion, well, because we can think of that, it won't actually manifest just that way, because universe likes surprise. And we've been accurate on the archetypes. For instance, for months we had this huge archetype thing developing for the United States of maritime disaster this, maritime disaster that, more references to oceanic disaster and so on. And I thought, geez, what's going on here? You know, are we going to have one of our aircraft carriers sink or whatever? Well, it turned out to be the Columbia spaceship explosion. Because Columbia, gem of the ocean, all the archetypes were there, the disaster, the emotional impact, the debris, all of the descriptors fit, but at the time that it was occurring, because it was associated with an archetype that had more maritime than any other association, it instantly drew my monkey mind to something occurring with the sea, and I never would have thought to look towards the space shuttle, which of course is a spaceship, and you get the idea.
Yeah. Anything else, Scott?
Well, yeah, actually hit two things, and thanks for keeping me on.
That's
cool.
Okay, because it's been so loud here with the rain, I've been letting you talk.
Right on.
Okay.
Cliff, this is somewhat... have you picked up any language with regard to Gary McKinnon? Are you familiar with Gary McKinnon?
Sure, I know who McKinnon is, yeah.
Okay, and do you have any kind of thumbnail sketch on what you think of his situation is?
I think he's not a hacker. I think he's a poor fellow who took advantage of holes that our stupid military guys left in the machinery and stomped around as anybody did with curiosity. I don't think he'll end up being prosecuted here in the U.S. and being associated with that part of things. Our data doesn't show that level of resolution. I'm reluctant to go into personal projections, though.
Cliff, do you feel that he actually stumbled onto what is rumored that he stumbled onto?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, that I have no doubt.
What did he stumble onto?
Gary McKinnon is a guy who lives in England, unemployed. He's a kid relative to me, so he's like under 30. Mm-hmm. And he's a good computer guy, and he discovered that the government had bunches of servers of theirs that had the word password as the password for control. And so he would go into these servers, and he was looking for space alien stuff at NASA. And what he discovered was an extraterrestrial space fleet, a secret space program, if you will, and some of the records that support the interfleet transfer of personnel and goods and so on. Now, that's what he reported, and he's been very tight-lipped and very circumspect about what he's actually said. So he's given out no details beyond just broad sketches here. And I commend him for that. He was not out blabbing out classified information. He was just trying to satisfy his curiosity. And so he's not an evil, not a person with evil intent or a hacker in that regard. Now, I know he's accurate because I see these things. I've got these third-generation night vision goggles, and when it's not pouring the rain here and I can get out and look an hour or so after dusk, I can see a secret space program going on over my head, a mere 145 miles away. So I know he found accurate information, and he's not giving anybody disinfo about that.
Well, thanks, Scott. We're shocked about that. Hey, what's your first name? Where are you calling from? Hello? 888-663-6386. Okay, let's see. Got lots of other emails here. Cliff, could you provide feedback on near-death experiences? YouTube videos describe similar experiences by traveling through a tunnel of light, communicating with a beam of light called God, had and shown in the Garden of Eden. Also, what data do you have for Chicago? Oh, near-death experiences in Chicago. That's great. I like it. You know, these people, they're thinking.
They're specific there, yeah.
And have you had a near-death experience? I have.
I've been near death frequently, but I've never had what they call a near-death experience.
Yeah, I went through the whole tunnel thing and all. Man, it was great.
Yeah, well, it's probably similar to some of the meditative experiences I've had. So
right.
You know, and it makes sense in an energetic reality. But bear in mind that for the vast majority of this, you are the microscope. At some point, the light's going to be switched off, and whoever is looking through you is really who you are. The body that is going to go through the death part is immaterial in more than one sense of the word. So near-death experience is fine, but it more relates to the body and all of that than anything persistent.
Okay. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, Clif. This is the unruly one.
Oh, how you doing? Yeah.
Pretty good. Hey, listen. I was wondering if you're familiar with universal signatures and what your understanding of those are and what the ramifications might be for altering those, and what your thoughts might be on someone who claims to possess the ability and or technology to create a universal signature or alter one.
Okay, you got a kind of a bad line. We're going to let you listen on your computer. Universal signatures, Clif High. What are those?
I haven't. There's a couple of different words that, or language groups that associate universal signatures. So I'm not sure specifically what she's referring to. There is the universal face, which is the source of all of that. That goes back to the Sanskrit, and goes back to the Sumerian, and that actually curiously relates to this interdimensional parasitism by the reptiles, because part of the universal face was this ability to force people to show the face behind, or all of the faces of all of the experiential microscopes that your consciousness would take over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so all of your other faces. I wouldn't trust anybody that, just as an aside, there's a lot of people out there claiming stuff, and I claim stuff all the time, and everybody calls me on it. And so anybody claims that they can alter something, make them prove it.
Make them prove it.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the linguistics and your work, what do you, I don't know, I want to use the word, what's this Gulf oil spill now, where's it going to go from here? What kind of degradation, marine problems, health problems, air, water with the people? I mean, how bad is it out there?
It's so bad that half of us probably will die from it.
Really?
On the planet.
Yeah,
because
many other people are saying that, Cliff.
Well, you got to look at it in a number of different ways. Not only is there the ill winds, the poisoning of everybody by the constant spraying that's going on, because they're still spraying the dispersants, by the way.
Are they really still spraying?
At night, yeah. Further, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that Matt Simmons was murdered, not drowned accidentally, because of the stuff that he was saying relative to the oil volcano, which is not yet shut off in the information I've got. You know, it's still spewing out from the cracks in the ground, and that the whole show that BP is putting on is just that, and that they're expecting they can manage it and they won't have to worry about it. But the problem is, or the issue for us is, the impact on weather. Now, we'd already had a situation where the weather of the planet was changing. We're in a situation of southern climate change. By sudden, I mean within the span of a human lifespan, because usually climates change so slowly it's not an issue.
Sure.
But right at the moment, we've got this now being accelerated by the impact of the oil on the lower levels of the ocean within the Gulf. And it really appears, from where they were drilling and all of the circumstances that led up to it, that this was another false flag attack, that this was the 9/11 of this particular year. And that what they did was they assaulted the U.S. and the planetary infrastructure through an ecological disaster quite deliberately, and that they drilled there knowing the pressure would be excessive, knowing that all of these various things would occur, and that did it all quite knowingly because of a particular outcome that they want to have happen. And that we're going to see climate change, but now that climate change has been exacerbated greatly by the addition of this large, dark sun-absorbing mass in an area that didn't used to exist there, and it's caused the changes in the current structure. Now, we'd already seen that the Gulf Stream was weakening. It's been weakening probably for the last 40 years and has been intermittent the last couple of years. Now it appears to have totally stopped, that it dies about 250 miles offshore, which means that in Europe this year, they may see a situation where the Thames freezes 2 or 3 feet thick, and we have situation of canals frozen all over Europe that stay frozen for a long time. We may even enter into a minimum ice age. There are some other ramifications here, too. If this is the case, then that means that the chemtrail spraying probably was just simply not getting the job done for them, because there's a lot to suggest that chemtrails were there to cause an ice age, to reflect back so much heat that we would flip the planet. In the 50s, we had Isaac Asimov and other individuals, scientists of all kinds, that said, well, basically we're going to go into a greenhouse effect and end up as Venus, or we're going to go into an ice age, and boy, we all sure hope it's an ice age. And the public would say, you know, I'd much rather have nice warm beaches than an ice age. But the problem is that if the oceans get warm, they die, and then everybody dies. So an ice age is good because it refreshes the oceans by making them cool, and they're basically the source of life and the regulation of the flow of temperature from the equator up to the poles, and then dissipating around the planet. So if you end up with warm oceans, you don't get the flow of you don't get the food, you don't get the regulation of the temperature across the planet, and essentially all life is at risk. And I think that is now the case because of what's occurred within the Gulf. Not only has it significantly altered the food issue and is going to cause starvation, and so thus people will die because there's less protein available and so on, but it's also going to impact us severely with weather. And we're going to get not only direct weather impact in the sense of frozen canals, disrupted transportation, and that kind of thing this winter, as well as excessive storms here in the U.S., but we'll also get a crashing global food supply over this year and next and beyond.
At the beginning of the show, Cliff and I were talking about rainwater and the Corexit and that kind of stuff in the rain. You might check out a website that I found quite interesting called testttherain.com, and I communicated with the man there and told him I was testing my rainwater with a test like it cost a couple $100. They test about 50 different things, and as Cliff said earlier, you really have to know what you're looking for, and then test for that. And then that's what I was told. So if you really want to test for some total yuck stuff in your rain, you might check out this testttherain.com, and then you can get some testing done that way to see if you're poisoning your garden. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
John, Swickley, Pennsylvania.
Go ahead, you're on the air.
Cliff, I'd like to bring you back to the topic of alien wars. About a year and a half ago, when you were talking about this topic, you mentioned it in the context of increasing public awareness of alien abductions, with the idea that people would actually be fighting back. You talked about the fighting back being more physical, people firing guns, things of that sort. Now when you talk about that topic, it's more the Ed Grimsley phenomena of shooting overhead. Do you still see the increasing phenomena of alien abduction still manifesting in public consciousness, and do you see an increase in people fighting back? And might this actually be more of possibly fighting back through psychic means, belief systems, power of meditation, that sort of thing, as opposed to physical violence?
I don't know about the latter. The the idea that the